Congratulations, guys, on this movie, which first premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, where I saw it, where it won like incredible acclaim, and now it's coming out into the world and opening November 20th. It has to make you feel good, Todd, to see this finally get out to audiences here and see the reaction that you're getting everywhere. You saw it right here tonight.
It makes me feel very proud. I couldn't be happier with all the people that we put together to make this happen. And this project has a long gestation period. It really has been 15 years in the making, from when Phyllis Nagy wrote the first draft of the script, the adaptation from Patricia Highsmith's novel, The Price of Salt. And then Elizabeth Carlson shepherded it over the last 4 or 5 years.
We had to wait for Rooney to be born.
We did.
Thank you, Cate.
Well, that's funny that you should say that, because I think a lot of the themes of the movie not only are the gender part of this film, but also the age difference too. And it's interesting, you know, because it's about relationships in many different ways than just the gender thing. And I think the age is part of that too. Don't you think so, Cate?
Yes, I mean, I think that a big part of it is, and what I find really beautiful in Phyllis's screenplay is that she's really brought out this undertone in the novel about the nature of heartbreak, and that really, in terms of, in order to deeply, truly love in a way that doesn't involve narcissism or projecting onto someone, your object of your desire, your own sort of solipsistic obsession, that you have to go through heartbreak to maturity, you know. And I think that's really, you know, what Todd's brought out, but definitely, I mean, one of my favorite moments in the film is that last moment with Rooney, where you remember this kind of cult-like sort of picture of inexperience, and suddenly you're utterly transformed. And watching you, I mean, I fell in love with you. I mean, but it's such a beautiful, subtle kind of journey that Rooney charts.
It is in the whole movie, you know, set in, what, 1952, Todd?
52 to 53.
52, when this book was written, clearly could not have been made as the film that you've made today, then. It took so long, 60 years to get to the screen. And what's so interesting is it sort of hit the zeitgeist in a lot of ways. It's got such relevance to today still.
No, utterly. I mean, of course, what was so remarkable about the material, that when it came to me, and Cate was attached to it, so it was an amazing incentive. It was my second time working with Cate on a film. And in many ways, this one she sort of brought to me. But, you know, yes, the civil rights ruling had not yet happened at that time, but the radical shift in public feeling about gays and lesbians' lives in America and throughout the West has been remarkable. You can't really overstate how much change that it has occurred. I mean, I came of age as a filmmaker during the AIDS era, and that was just the late 80s, early 90s. And the changes in attitudes, the way that epidemic was completely turned around by a galvanized community, an embattled community. And where we stand today is a whole different world. So Carol resides in a very unique moment.
You rushed out here before I could mention the name Far From Heaven, the movie you made, that's set in, that's set in the 50s as well, but very different, but clearly a time period that you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, what was so interesting about Carol is that it was such a different end of that decade. It was really pre-Eisenhower, pre the sort of glossy 50s that we sort of ascribed to that era, and which I was definitely consciously sort of channeling through the sort of classic work of Douglas Sirk and the studio system in Far From Heaven. But this was so resonant as this universal story about love, and I felt like I'd never really taken on the love story as a genre before in a film. And what the love story is, to me, what makes it function and be so resonant is how it locates point of view, and how you begin looking at Carol through the eyes of Therese, and you end looking at Therese through the eyes of Carol. And it's always the vulnerable party who's the subject of the love story. And I just love that the movie let you make that transition.
Yeah, it's brilliant too, and it's like you're looking at it, when you say the words looking at it, Rooney, it's so many great silences too. Not done with dialogue, but just like the essence of screen acting to me, through the eyes, and there's so much of that in this. And I know you've heard this 150 times since this film debuted, but you remind everybody of the young Audrey Hepburn of that, which is a huge compliment, as you know. Yeah. So talk about taking on this role of Therese and working with Cate and creating that kind of chemistry that you guys have here.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I was really excited to do it, not only because, it was obviously a dream to get to work with Cate, and I really wanted to work with Todd, but I was sort of wanting to do this. It was very different than anything I had done before, and I loved all of those, the sort of silent and nuanced moments that were in the script, but they were also quite scary because there were a lot of times where I felt like, oh, I don't really feel like I'm doing enough, or I'm not really doing anything. But I sort of just had to trust that Todd would let me know if I needed to do more. Or
Indeed, yeah. You saw that going on as you're directing this and purposely getting that kind of performance, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just thought this is I'd been watching Rooney's work over the years, this amazing body of work that she's been, producing, and she's played some pretty ballsy characters, some pretty intense characters, but with such understatement and with such, a confidence of not overplaying these characters. And I just thought this role, I'd never seen her really do anything like this before. And in a way, it's a very simple story, and in a way that maybe the simplest stories are the most true. And you watch her literally grow up in front of your eyes through the course of the film. And that's just, I really feel like you're watching the molecular change going on in this character.
Cate, can you talk about how you develop this kind of relationship on film and make it so believable? Because I don't think you guys, I know for a fact, you really didn't know each other. We did a tribute at Santa Barbara Film Festival.
Yes.
And Rooney came to present you the award, and you told me, I'm doing a movie with her. I'm just meeting her tonight.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. You said nice things about me, so I knew it would be fine. But I mean, the film was like a lot of great films that are around this year. They've made in a wing and a prayer, and with a lot of passion. But like Todd, I think Rooney's makes not only the choices of films and the directors that you've chosen to work with, but the way you've navigated them. I don't know. I found a sort of simpatico with those sort of creative and aesthetic choices, and I think the best way to get to know someone is to work on something. You can talk yourself, till you're blue in the face, but once you start doing it, and a lot of what happens to Carol and Therese is this: they have this volcanic, uncontrollable feelings for one another, but they're processed and dealt with, and sort of stewing away, separate from one another. And so we had several quite long scenes together, and it was always such a relief to find, to sit opposite one another and either speak or not speak. And I think we just got on with it. Yeah.
And you didn't have, this being an independently produced movie, you didn't have a whole lot of takes, right? Or a lot of time to keep doing it over and over?
But Todd is, you're such a great collaborator, and you really invite everybody, and everybody on the set into the kind of the visual language in the world, so everyone feels like a participant, and it felt like you were right there with us every step of the way. So it in a way, we'd imbibed a lot of the atmosphere, and it felt like everyone was really, we didn't necessarily know how it was going to run, but we were all on the same page,
And Rooney, I just want to ask you too, did you refer to the book a lot? Because obviously as an actor you have that book to go back to, which has a lot of the interior life, particularly in this case, of the characters. Did that help you as an actor?
Yeah, it has all of the interior life. The entire book is written from Therese's point of view, so it was if ever I was lost, I always went back to the book because her entire stream of consciousness is basically in there, and yeah, it was really, really helpful to have that.
And you actually opened it up. You worked with Phyllis Nagy, who's a great screenwriter here. I got to mention Phyllis, who wrote the screenplay, and you worked with her here. And there's a lot of changes from the book, and some of that I think you probably asked for too, right?
Well, she really had made it her own on the page when I first read it. There were some tensions in the book between the two women that were so familiar to me. Like, it's the way you feel when you're falling in love with somebody and you're absolutely ill at ease with them. You don't know where you stand. So every moment is kind of this searing, disequilibrium, and you're reading every sign for what it means. And we
Snickers of recognition.
And so some of that, I said, "Oh, Phyllis, let's put some of that back in." And she said, "Thank you," because I could tell that this script had been around for a while. And sometimes when you're trying to appeal to financiers and you kind of want to make things a little more palatable and congenial, perhaps. And she was like, "Yes, that's what let's go back to stuff she had done previously," which was really cool.
I also love that she did, and you really brought this out as well, as did Jake and Kyle, is that the men are not demonized at all in it, in a way that they kind of are in the book, because
really
they're seen, there's a lot of blame and disregard and disrespect that Therese has for Carol's relationship with Hodge. And, there's kind of more belligerence about the character of Richard, and whereas I felt the men were really, they were as at sea with the whole situation and with their own masculinity as the women are with their position.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask Richard here, Jake. I thought that too. I didn't think that this was a black and white kind of story at all, and I had sympathy for you, actually, in this movie.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. Thanks.
I mean, it's a very complicated situation to find yourself in 1952 when this is set.
Yeah, we had talked a little bit about for Richard, he's a first-generation American. His parents are immigrants, and so for him, there's a pressure of what success is and what the dream really is. And that his dream, I think, is to manage this department store and to have a house and 2 kids, and that's the ceiling, that's the whole dream. And it's just not a large enough dream, for this woman that he's in love with and tries to change to be the person he thinks that she wants, without realizing that that's not really how love is, and that's not the answer. But following that, this idea that she's a part of his dream is a little more hopeful for him and probably sadder to see fall apart. It's not someone just roping them in, but just hoping that they can become the person that they should be for this other person. Yeah.
I think for everybody in this, I know me at the end of this movie, in that scene, I go okay, so what happened to them after? What happened? And I just wish the best for you too. I did. I hope that it doesn't always work out, but what do you think? What do you think happened? Or don't you want to know?
I didn't ever move beyond that moment. I did think a lot about what would have happened to Carol if Therese hadn't shown up. Did I make this up, Todd? I'm so jet-lagged and delirious. But isn't that at the end of the novel, isn't there kind of a little postscript where she talks about, Highsmith talks about following the woman that she kind of loosely based Carol on? I've made that up?
No, but it's in the biography.
Oh, okay, there we go.
And we tracked her, because this was all inspired by the fact that Patricia Highsmith, who had written her first novel, Strangers on a Train, sold it to Alfred Hitchcock when she was in her early 20s, incredibly preternaturally gifted woman. And this was her second novel. But she hadn't made that much money on the sale.
Yeah.
And she temped at Bloomingdale's for a Christmas season on the doll floor. And this incredibly handsome, elegant woman walked in one day and asked to help her buy a gift for her daughter for Christmas. And it's inspired the whole story. But
She followed her.
she followed her. She kept the address. And even after Strangers on a Train came out and her career got solidified and she continued on, she kept it and she traced it back and hid in the bushes and
watched her
watched the
drinking.
house. And we
Yeah.
did riff on that in the film.
Yeah.
And that scene, that's really from Carol's point of view. Because I had a scene early on in the script where we were with Therese outside the house.
Yeah.
But then it kind of shifted, and this was your idea.
Was it?
Yes. To make that scene of her and Abby that is such a pivotal scene in the film.
Yeah, that's right.
And to have a car,
It's a good idea.
right? And to have that car come up the drive and freak them out.
Yeah.
And make their sense of safety and, being surveyed or whatever, in
Yeah.
doubt afterwards. But,
But,
that's a really
yeah.
a big turning point in the story because it's really where Carol's reassessing the value of Therese in her life.
But I did wonder whether, you hear about those terrible tragedies where the people you least suspect suddenly quietly suicide one day, and you think, I had no idea that was going on, and I thought, well, Carol was probably she's sitting on so much stuff. I thought, she might be one of those people.
Until she found.
Yeah, so it can only be better than that at the end of the movie.
All right. That's a good ending. We like that. All right, so we have some questions. We have the SAG Foundation here. We've got all actors, and they've written out a bunch of cards here. And this is from Shelby. Shelby, where are you? Right there. Hi, Shelby. Her question is to Cate. Your career is one that many actors wish to emulate, and you have inspired many of us. What actors
Which
have...
ones? Who? Which? Put your hands up.
She's right there. Which actors have inspired you, and who do you look up to?
Ooh. Who did I want to be? I loved Lucille Ball, and I loved.
I heard a rumor you might be involved in a Lucille Ball project.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for.
Aaron Sorkin, too.
Yeah. And I loved the Muppets, and I Jenna Rollins I absolutely adored, and Bette Davis, and there's this astonishing Hungarian actress who was in Amir Kusturica's Underground, which is one of my all-time favorite films, and she is just a goddess. I can't recall her name, but she's amazing.
Hungarian?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Hungarian, Romanian. But Jenna Rollins is a big one for me.
And you're actually presenting the honorary Oscar to Jenna Rollins tomorrow night, so that's cool. It's long overdue for Jenna Rollins.
But Bette Davis, of course, I could watch her. All About Eve is one of those perfect films.
A movie that should never be remade, by the way, because it was perfect the first time. Savannah Kennick. Where are you? Savannah? I don't know. Okay, right over there. This is for Rooney Mara. In the beginning of your career, when you were dealing with issues beyond your control to get jobs, I guess, what did you do to keep yourself focused on the craft? Okay, dealing with things where you couldn't get all the jobs you wanted and things. What did you do to keep going and focus on your craft?
What did I do? You know what? I did a lot of things that had nothing to do with acting. That was kind of how I got through it, was having a lot of other things in my life that I was passionate about that I could feel fulfilled by.
All right, this one's from George. George, I hope there's only one George. George, right there. Hi, George. This is for Cate. What's your biggest fear as an actress? You seem fearless.
My biggest fear. I always find the first day on set or in the rehearsal room terrifying, and I always poke my husband at about 3 a.m. and say, "What's my process? Do I have a process? What do I do? I mean, we're going to do a table read tomorrow. I mean, what do people?" It's always like it's never happened before, so it's I think it's because you have to risk not knowing and not knowing how to do it, and it's through being in conversation with everybody. It's not about, of course you do your preparation, and that's part of, a great, I derive an enormous amount of enjoyment about researching around a part and preparing, but it's irrelevant. It's a dialogue, it's not a monologue. Even if it's your close-up, you're still in dialogue with the, with the memory of what the other actors has done. If they're not beside the camera, or it's still to the camera crew, still to Todd. It's a dialogue. So I think it's always the fear of not being able to. But I've bitten off more than I can chew this time, and I think the more you do, the more that's expected of you in a way, and so the more you have to risk up.
Can I ask you about working with Todd Haynes? Because you worked with him before.
You may.
Yes, you worked with him before and played wonderful. You got an Oscar nomination, actually.
Yes, so I thought I'd go in a second time.
Playing what is really Bob Dylan and a male role. And, what was it about Todd Haynes that made you want to jump into one of his movies then? Because you'd probably seen a few of his earlier films, too, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. I was an unabashed, drooling fan. And one of my all-time moments of professional jealousy was when a fellow Australian, Tony Collette, I thought, my God, she's working with Todd Haynes on Velvet Goldmine. So I'd long wanted to work with Todd, but it was the insanity of the ask, I think, that was just so weird to be asked to play Bob Dylan. I mean, it was just okay. But we sat, and it was just this kind of this scrapbook thing, and it was something I really relate to. I'm constantly tearing images out of magazines or referencing paintings, or I'm very visually stimulated. It's because it bypasses your psychology and connects something deeper in it. And I really connected with Todd on that level, and then when you emailed me and said, are you still interested in doing this? I went, of course. It was like a real eureka moment, and that's when the film took momentum. It was a complete no-brainer.
Wow. Todd, what was it that made you think of Cate as Bob Dylan? I'm sort of curious.
Well, I mean, I knew I wanted to cast a woman in that one role. And then, because it was the Dylan of 1966 when he plugged in electric and he had once again changed his whole body and shape and voice and references and philosophy. And I think because it's such a famous moment in rock and roll history, it sort of lost its shock value. But I think it must have been genuinely seismically shocking at the time. And I wanted to sort of reinfuse it with a little shock value. And there was an androgyny in him at that time that was really remarkable. So I've been watching what Cate has been doing in film for so many years, but I also was tearing out pictures and looking at you. I wanted to see you, and I could see it. I saw it. But the thing about that performance is that it's so much more than that. And she brings this depth and this three-dimensionality to that guy. And this sort of loneliness, this sort of lurking isolation that he also was feeling at the same time. So it just works on so many profound levels, and that is what, only Cate could have done.
But something that Rooney and I have been talking a lot about, we've been doing a lot of talking in the last few days, but is this, you have such a discerning eye, Todd, but there's no judgment in it. It's all part of the process, and it's sort of, in a way, it is utterly liberating. And I remember the first day on the Dylan thing, we were doing photos really for, and we were just sort of, I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a go, and your excitement at kind of, okay, we're starting. It was so contagious. That suddenly everyone was really excited about it. And so then we went deeper and further and more and more. And the same thing, even though Carol's, it's so delicate and fragile emotionally and psychologically, there was still that same sense of investment and lack of judgment in a really constructive way that was, that only you can create that atmosphere.
It's cool. I've talked to you before, and you said you had you used the word simpatico with Rooney immediately. You two sort of like connected
Didn't
right
we?
away. Rooney, talk about that a little bit. Tell us, on that set, and it's sort of magic when it happens too, I guess too. But what was it, the connection that you had here?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't even think, you can get I don't think you really know if the chemistry is going to work until you've seen the film. I mean, I didn't know, because, you can adore someone to no end, but you don't know what the camera is going to see. We were lucky that we had these 2 weeks in Cincinnati of rehearsal, and we were able to just sort of sit around a table for those 2 weeks and read through the script and get to know each other a little bit and form that trust that Cate was talking about. And so that when we got to set, we were able to just try anything and everything without fear of embarrassment or looking foolish. And yeah.
Jake, what about you? I'm just curious, coming onto this set with Todd Haynes, who's done so many great films, these two great actresses. You're relatively new in the movie business. You've done a lot of television. What was this like for you, coming onto this movie? What did it mean to you?
I was really scared. Just honestly, just really freaked out. Just really intimidated. Yeah, but that's all just garbage. You tell yourself, it's not, nobody else presented that. I arrived and even meeting Todd before we went to Cincinnati was he was immediately generous and kind and enthusiastic and warm, and which it makes me more nervous, because then it's well, this is a good thing, and I just get worked up. But I guess that's not really the point. The point is that it was just kind of mind-blowing, honestly. I mean, there's a scene that we shot both our coverage at the same time, and then could see the playback, and I like to watch the playback because I just want to be better on the next take and hope that I see these mistakes and can improve. But we saw them next to each other, and I was I could see me and was yeah, that guy's okay. And also what you were doing, and I was just kind of holy shit. But it's true. It's true, and in this film, you're amazing.
Our first day of shooting on the film, the first scene, first day for us, we had to shoot this really big, important scene that didn't end up in the film.
Even though we reshot it.
Well, we had to reshoot it because it was it was the first day, first scene. I mean, it was and such an important scene, and then we did have to reshoot it, and then it didn't end up in the film.
And the weather went from went
Yes.
sunny to gray to rain to
snow.
sleet in 30 minutes of shooting. There was a big discussion of can you cut that together into anything? But it was, I'm eternally grateful to have been a part of it, and still sort of obviously a little blown away to be sitting here right now.
It's cool. Well, I think everybody's blown away to see all of you come out tonight and share all these stories about the making of Carol. The movie opens November 20th. Let's thank everybody for coming out here tonight. Thank you.